I find his lack of balance disturbing.
It's all that data, bro. With SLT mega deals, he's got double data for the next 2 months.
More time to argue. Sri Lanka Highest Court extends contested parliament dissolution order. To protect core values, President Maithripala Sirisena says he is prepared to amend any disputed clauses in the 19th Amendment. The only solution. While widespread protests call for general elections, CAFE urges to hold both presidential and general polls on the same day. End of an era. Remains of US President George H.W. Bush to be laid to rest at his presidential library in Texas.
බයික් එකක් ගත්තොත් ෆෝන් එකක්. ඔව් තෝරාගත් යමහා බයික් මාදිලි සඳහා රුපියල් 40000ක් දක්වා වටිනා ස්මාර්ට් ෆෝන් එකක් නොමිලේ. ඉක්මන් කරන්න නොවැම්බර් 30 දක්වා පමණයි. කොන්දේසි සහිතයි. අමතන්න 0117 AMW ඉතින් පමණයි.
A very good evening and a warm welcome to First at 9 on other Derana 24/7 Sri Lanka's news channel. Well, as we get closer to one of the most anticipated court verdicts in the recent political history of Sri Lanka to be pronounced over the President's decision to dissolve Parliament, Supreme Court today extended its interim order suspending the Gazette on dissolution of Parliament by a further day. In a surprise move, President ousted then Premier Ranil Wickremesinghe and appointed former President Mahinda Rajapaksa as Prime Minister and then dissolved Parliament. However, 13 political parties submitted fundamental rights petitions seeking to revert the President's decision to dissolve Parliament. The Supreme Court began hearing the petitions before a 7-member bench of judges on Tuesday, and today marked its third day. Supreme Court opinion was earlier expected by tomorrow. However, the Supreme Court today decided to extend an interim order suspending the Gazette dissolving Parliament until the day after tomorrow.
The 7-member bench of judges appointed by the President to hear fundamental rights petitions filed by several political parties against the President's decision to dissolve Parliament were heard for a third day. Attorneys representing intervenient petitioners began making submissions last evening. Meanwhile, resuming the day's session, President's Counsel Sanjeeva Jayawardena, representing the chairman of Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Professor G.L. Pires, continued his submission stating that under Article 62, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution, the President has the power to dissolve Parliament. He went on to say that all parliamentarians, with one exception, were dissolved by executive presidents after 1978 under the powers vested by that clause. President's Counsel Manohara De Silva, who represents UPFA parliamentarian Uday Gammanpila, then made submissions. Establishing his stance that the President dissolved Parliament constitutionally, he said that Sri Lanka's constitution had clearly given the mandate to the President to dissolve Parliament before 4.5 years under Article 62, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution. President's Counsel Manohara De Silva then drove the attention of bench of judges to the fact that Article 33 Sub-Article 2 of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution gives power to the President to dissolve Parliament during a questionable instance. Moreover, he pointed out that this mandate was not vested upon the President before the 19th Amendment. He further said that the petitions filed before Supreme Court and the resulting verdict will be decisive in providing a solution to the political crisis that has arisen in the country. President's Counsel Manohara De Silva also highlighted that no one has challenged before a court the decision of President to remove former Prime Minister from office on the 26th of October. President's Counsel Muhammad Ali Sabri, representing the intervenient petitioners, then raised his stance before the Supreme Court. He emphasized on the fact that intervenient petitioners are not of the view that Article 33 Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution should be considered in isolation, but questioned the motive behind including such a clause under the 19th Amendment. The President's Counsel also highlighted the fact that Article 70 Sub-Article 1 and Article 70 Sub-Article 2 include both the mandate of the Parliament and the measures that should be taken when dissolving it. He also questioned if the initial section of the Constitution should be followed in dissolving Parliament. What was the purpose behind including Article 33 Sub-Article 2 to the executive powers under the 19th Amendment? According to him, the clause which bars the president from dissolving parliament until 4.5 years through the 19th Amendment was passed without a public mandate because Article 33 sub-Article 2 was included under the executive powers of the president. Speaking before the judge bench, President's counsel Ali Sabri also emphasized the fact that no one can argue that the president would dissolve parliament just because he has the mandate to do so, just like no one can say the president would engage in criminal acts because the president has immunity from law. The President's counsel told the judge bench that the local authorities' election were not held for 2.5 years and the provincial council elections too are being postponed for certain reasons. Therefore, he emphasized that considering the direction in which the country is heading, when taking such a decision, matters should be looked into specifically and differently. The attention was then driven towards the fact that in 2002, the Supreme Court didn't allow a draft that allowed to amend the constitution enabling parliament be dissolved only after 4.5 years because Article 33 sub-Article 2 does not give executive powers to the president to dissolve parliament. He then highlighted that the draft of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution was brought before a judge bench chaired by the then Chief Justice K. Siripavan in 2015. The Supreme Court sanctioned it for a special reason, which is convening, proroguing and dissolving Parliament were introduced under executive powers of the President through Article 33 sub-Article 2. Moreover, PC Ali Sabri said that although the clause says a motion should be passed through Parliament in order to dissolve Parliament before 4.5 years, it is meaningless to assume that Parliament would ever pass a motion to dissolve itself. After President's Counsel Ali Sabri, President's Counsel Gamini Marapan and President's Counsel Kanishka Vitharana made their submissions on behalf of the intervenient petitioners. Tomorrow, the fundamental rights petitions will respond to the submissions by the intervenient petitioners. In the meantime, the Supreme Court decided to extend the interim order suspending the Gazette dissolving Parliament until the day after tomorrow, 8th of December.
President Maithripala Sirisena emphasizes that he is prepared to amend any disputed clause in the 19th Amendment through a parliamentary process. The President's views were expressed via a special statement issued by the President's Media Division today. The head of state went on to say that the 19th Amendment was passed with the objective of ensuring strong democratic values in the country through steps such as establishing independent commissions and strengthening democracy within government bodies. He affirmed that any changes to the 19th Amendment will be done without harming the intended core values. And as per instructions of the President, a circular has been issued to all ministries, departments and boards not to use luxury hotels for their events and meetings. Moving on to other local news, the United National Party is calling President Maithripala Sirisena to resolve the current political crisis as soon as possible instead of waiting for another 7 days, as the head of state declared during a speech recently. UNP parliamentarian Harshana Rajakaruna voiced the party's sentiment at a media briefing held at Temple Trees today.
එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ නායකත්වයේ එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ අපි විසඳ ගන්නවා. ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයේ සභාපතිවරයාට කිසිම අයිතියක් නැහැ. එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදය ගැනවත් එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ නායකත්වය ගැනත් එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ වෙන දේවල් ගැනවත් කතා කරන්න. එතුමා කියනවා තව දවස් 7කින් මේ ප්‍රශ්නය අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම විසඳනවා. මෙච්චර රටක් ආගාදයට පත්වෙන්න කරලා දවස් 7ක් තව ඉන්නේ මොනවට? හෙට පාර්ලිමේන්තුව කැඳවලා පැයකින් විසඳන්න පුළුවන් ප්‍රශ්නයක් මේක. මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ තව දින 7ක් යනකම් කල් යවන්න එපා. දිනෙන් දින මෛත්‍රීපාල සිරිසේන ජැතිතුමා මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමාවත් එකතු කරගෙන වලට වැටෙනවා.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa claims that a lower court cannot suspend proceedings of a government and that the move in Sri Lanka is unacceptable. The former president expressed these views while talking on the recent verdict given by the Court of Appeal, restraining him in the capacity of Prime Minister and his cabinet from functioning.
A public petition with 1 million signatures calling for general elections to be held immediately was handed over to former President Mahinda Rajapaksa at the Abhayarama temple in Narayanpeta today.
The entire country is calling for an election. Regardless of challenges you may face, you should retake the country's power. The Mahasangha will always bless you and give you the necessary strength to uplift this country from its current unfortunate state. President Maithripala Sirisena, you should not take a step backward from your decision.
ඔබතුමා ගත්ත පය නම් පත්තට ගන්න එපා.
අගමැතිවරයා ඉන්නවා.
Although they cannot function, there is a Prime Minister with his designated post and a cabinet along with its ministers. We are against the verdict of the Court of Appeal because it's wrong. We've now filed an appeal at the Supreme Court on this regard. This is the first time in the world's history that a lower court issued such a ruling. We aren't government officers.
අපි රජයේ සේවකයෝ නෙවෙයිනේ.
ඔබතුමාට විශ්වාසයක් තියෙනවද මැතිවරණයක් තියයි කියලා?
මැතිවරණයක අවශ්‍යතාවය.
I personally don't have the need for an election, but the people of this country want one. They begin to tremble when the word election is mentioned.
මෙයාලා ඡන්දයක් කිව්වම කකුල් දෙක උලනවා.
The United People's Freedom Alliance, meanwhile, says that although they voted in favor of the 19th Amendment, it has proved to be a damaging blow to the country. UPFA MP WDJ Seneviratne made his comment, responding to media today.
බඩේට ආවහම අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම මේ 19 වෙනි සංශෝධනය කරන්න ඕන.
මේ 19 සංශෝධනය ගෙනුව ඔබතුමාලා ආණ්ඩුවේ හිටියා. ඔබතුමාලා පස්සේ ඡන්දෙත් දුන්නා. මේ ඔබතුමාලාට තේරුම් නැද්ද මේක ඉදිරියේදී මේ රටට අහිතක් වෙනවා.
අම්පාර දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ වීරසේකර මන්ත්‍රීතුමා පවණයි ඡන්දෙ දුන්නේ. අනිත් අය ඒ වෙලාව හැටියට ඡන්දෙ දුන්නා. දැන් තමයි අපිට පේන්නේ මේකේ තියෙන වැඩි සාගතා. ජනාධිපතිතුමාත් මං හිතන්නේ නෑ මේ කාරණේ ගැන වැඩිදුර ගැඹුරට දන්නවයි කියලා. ඒ වෙලාවේ දිනසියේ අයවැයටත් අපි ඡන්දෙ දුන්නා. මොනවා මේකේ වගකීම ජනාධිපතිවරයා ගන්න ඕනේ. ජනාධිපතිතුමා එක්තරා ප්‍රමාණයකට වගකීම් දෙනවා.
Well, a number of protests and marches were organized across the island today as well, calling for general elections and for the people to exercise their franchise.
Protests were held at Second Mile Post Junction in Anuradhapura and Ampara town, demanding a general election soon. Meanwhile, the program to collect signatures for a petition calling for a general election also took place at Mehintale in Anuradhapura and Kaduruvela in Polonnaruwa today. A team of young political activists had organized an open debate at the Vihara Mahadevi Open Air Theatre. They exchanged their ideas on how to solve the country's political crisis.
This is not about politics. This is about our country.
Well, the Campaign for Free and Fair Elections says that the only solution to the ongoing constitutional and political crisis was to conduct a presidential and general election simultaneously. CAFE Executive Director Kirti Tennakon told media today that President Maithripala Sirisena was constitutionally empowered to declare a presidential poll after the completion of 4 years in office on January 8th of 2019. He said, quote, if this becomes a reality, we can have a new president, new government, new cabinet and a new parliament with new hopes by next February. But to do that, political parties and politicians must give a break to their political experience, personal agendas and show maturity and statesmanship, because this is an issue of an unprecedented political and constitutional crisis, and victims are none other than the 22 million people, the economy, the culture of the country and social values.
තිරසාර විසඳුමක් ලබා ගන්නට නොහැකි තත්වයට පත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. මේ ජනවාරි 9 වෙනිදා වෙනකොට ජනාධිපතිවරයාගේ දූර කාලය අවුරුදු 4ක් පිරෙනවා. ජනාධිපතිවරයාගේ දූර කාලය අවුරුදු 4ක් පිරෙනකොට ජනාධිපතිවරයාට හැකියාවක් තිබෙනවා ජනාධිපතිවරණයක්.
In other local news, the Police Narcotics Bureau and the Police Special Task Force uncovered a haul of heroin considered the second largest detection in Sri Lanka. Police media spokesperson Ruan Gunasekara said the heroin, weighing 231 kilograms, is valued at 2,778 million rupees. In the meantime, the Colombo Chief Magistrate allowed police to detain the 2 suspects arrested in connection with this incident for 2 other days for interrogation.
Based on a tip, a group of officials of the Police Narcotics Bureau and the Police Special Task Force, disguised as fishermen, set out on a special mission in search of narcotics in the seas of Beruwala last night. After detecting a suspicious boat, the officials had taken into custody 2 suspects and then uncovered a stash of heroin weighing 231 kilograms. The boat was found to be from Pakistan and had been exchanged for a trawler belonging to a person from Berwala at the international waters. The suspects had revealed that the notorious narcotic smuggler Kimbula Alagune was connected to the mission. The haul of heroin intended to be exported to Europe is worth 2,778 million rupees. It is considered the second largest haul of heroin detected in Sri Lanka. In August 2013, police uncovered a stash of heroin weighing 261 kilograms while being smuggled from Pakistan, which is the largest found in Sri Lanka to date. In the meantime, police spokesperson Ruwan Gunasekara said that 430 kilograms of heroin valued at 5,166 million rupees have been detained so far in this year, with over 37,000 persons arrested in connection.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Welcome back to First at 9. Addressing the meeting of state parties to the Biological Weapons Convention, Sri Lanka's permanent representative in Geneva, Ambassador A.L.A. Aziz, stated that Sri Lanka accorded high priority to the effective implementation of the Biological Weapons Convention, the first multilateral treaty to ban an entire category of weapons of mass destruction. He stressed that continuing to drive towards universalization of this important convention would strengthen the efforts of the international community against the use or threat of use of biological agents or deliberate the use of such in breach of peace and security. Elaborating national implementation measures and efforts under the convention, Aziz referred to the strategic plan on antimicrobial resistance under One Heart concept in Sri Lanka. He further stressed that the learning from the experiences of state parties and sharing of good practices was important, and that such an inclusive approach would contribute to further improving policy and legal frameworks. In your business news, tourist arrivals to Sri Lanka in November this year grew 16.8% from a year earlier to 195,582, despite the ongoing political situation in the country, with strong growth from India and the UK. Data from the Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Office said that arrivals from the United Kingdom grew 61.1% to 21,971 tourists, overtaking the Chinese market, which fell 1.8% to 18,888 tourist arrivals to the island nation. About 20% of the tourists came from India, with arrivals growing 21.4% from the neighboring country compared to a year earlier, which was 39,137 tourists. German arrivals, meanwhile, grew 89.6% to 18,754 arrivals, with a sixth of them coming on cruise ships. Well, at the Colombo Stock Exchange, the all-share price index rose 0.59% to 6,032.54 today. It had risen 1.5% last week, recording its first weekly gain in 4. Market turnover was 533.3 million rupees, less than this year's daily average of 830 million rupees. Foreigners, meanwhile, sold a net 125 million rupees worth of stocks. We have Amanda Lukugamage from First Capital Holdings with a brief report.
All share price index ended in green, reversing the negative sentiment witnessed for the last 2 trading sessions on the gains made by Yellow LLC and John Keells. 22% of turnover was derived from partial trades on John Keells, while volume recorded a 1-week high. A net foreign outflow was witnessed for the 8th consecutive day amidst low foreign participation. On the crossings board, 2 partial trades were witnessed on John Keells, trading 726,000 shares at 160 rupees a share.
And the Sri Lankan rupee today closed slightly firmer in dull trade, prompted by inward remittances of the US dollar. The currency ended at 179 and 15 to 20 cents per dollar, compared with 179 and 20 to 25 cents in the previous session. It fell 1.8% in November and 16.8% so far this year. We take a look at how the local currency traded against other major currencies of the world during the day. In some international business news, oil tumbled in a volatile session today after OPEC signaled it may agree to a smaller output cut than expected, and as concern over the economic impact of trade tensions hit global stock markets. The Organization of the Petroleum Importing Countries, or OPEC, is meeting in Vienna to decide its production policy in coordination with non-OPEC producers, including Russia, Oman and Kazakhstan. Expectations had been for a joint cut of between 1 and 1.4 million barrels per day, until Saudi Energy Minister Khalid Al-Fayed said before the meeting that the OPEC group would be happy with a cut of just 1 million barrels per day. Brent crude was down 1.41 to $60.15 US a barrel, having hit a session low of $58.36, while US futures were down 1.38 to $51.51 US a barrel. The two have lost 30% in value this quarter alone. Led by Saudi Arabia's OPEC's group, crude oil production has risen by 41%, or rather 4.1%, since mid-2018 to 33.31 million barrels per day. Meanwhile, European equities hit their lowest in 2 years amid commodity-sensitive currencies such as the Russian ruble fell sharply, in part because of the slide in the oil price, but also with the arrest of a top executive of the Chinese tech giant Huawei in Canada. We'll bring you more on the Huawei chief's arrest in our international news segment. We'll take a short break now.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Welcome back. In news overseas, Canada has arrested Huawei's global chief financial officer, Meng Wanzhou, in Vancouver, where she is now facing extradition to the United States. China had condemned the arrest while urging the United States and Canada to clarify the move.
Global Chief Financial Officer of Huawei, Meng Wanzhou, who is also the daughter of the founder of the Chinese telecoms giant, was arrested in Vancouver on 1st of December. Details of the arrest have not been released, but United States has been investigating Huawei over possible violation of sanctions against Iran. A court hearing is set for tomorrow. Huawei said that it has been provided little information of the charges against Meng, adding that it was not aware of any wrongdoing by their CFO. China, meanwhile, demanded her immediate release. Condemning the arrest, China said that Meng did not commit any crime and that the arrest is a violation of her human rights. The arrest comes at a sensitive time for US-China relations and will not help the 90-day tariff truce these nations agreed after President Donald Trump and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping met at the G20 summit.
The royalty, world leaders, past and present, and all surviving former US presidents, along with their wives, packed the Washington National Cathedral yesterday for the state funeral of the late President George H.W. Bush. Bush Sr., who served as the 41st US president, will be laid to rest in his home state of Texas, alongside his wife, Barbara.
Former US President George H.W. Bush was hailed at his state funeral yesterday as a warrior statesman of uncommon personal kindness who went from being a hero of American conflicts to representing a bygone era of civility in politics. At the US National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., an emotional George W. Bush described his father as a noble man, the best father. All surviving US presidents attended the funeral. German Chancellor Angela Merkel, King Abdullah of Jordan, and Prince Charles were among the leaders who paid their respects to the late leader. An unusual bipartisan spirit was also on display at the funeral service, with a gathering of both Republican and Democratic politicians. Following the state funeral, the flag-draped casket of the late leader departed Washington for the final time and headed home to Texas to be buried next to his wife and daughter. The family watched with visible emotions as the late leader was saluted by the military, honored with Hail to the Chief, and loaded onto Special Air Mission 41, one of the Air Force One planes flown by Bush when he was in office. There will be another funeral service at St. Martin's Episcopal Church in Houston today. He will then be laid to rest at his presidential library in College Station in Texas. Bush, who passed away on Friday aged 94, occupied the White House from 1989 to 1993. He navigated the collapse of the Soviet Union and expelled former Iraqi President Saddam Hussein's forces from oil-rich Kuwait.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Welcome back. In sports, Sri Lanka karate team, who won 2 bronze medals at this year's Commonwealth Karate Championships, returned to the island last night. A team of 21 Sri Lankan athletes participated at the 9th Commonwealth Karate Championships held in Durban across 4 days.
1,000 athletes representing 20 countries participated at the 2018 Commonwealth Karate Championship, which was held in South African capital of Durban from November 29 to December 2nd. 21 athletes representing Sri Lanka participated in the championship. Roshan Amarasinghe, representing Sri Lanka, won a bronze medal in Kumite -75 category. Competing in Kumite -67 kg category, Ramita Veerasinghe also secured a bronze for Sri Lanka.
Now let's take a look at your weather forecast for tomorrow. Due to low-level atmospheric disturbances in the Bay of Bengal area moving to the southeast of Sri Lanka, prevailing rainy condition is likely to continue over the island during the next few days. Showers or thunder showers will occur in many parts of the island, with heavy falls of about 100 millimeters expected at some places in the central, eastern, Uva, Sabaragamuwa and southern provinces. Misty conditions may also occur at some places in the central, Sabaragamuwa and western provinces during the morning hours of tomorrow. Here's a look at your city by city weather forecast for the next 24 hours. Well, that's it from Other Derana First at 9 for tonight. But before we go, we are taking you to Delthata. Located in the central province of Sri Lanka, this scenic village is close to several UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and the closest being the sacred city of Kandy. Delthata is commonly famous for experiencing rainy weather conditions constantly. Enjoy these visuals. Good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.